Holy City Center Radio, it is episode 84, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Monday, February 13th, 2023. What a Super Bowl last night. Can you believe what happened? I don't know what happened yet. As I'm recording this, the game has not even started yet, so I don't know what happened. Hopefully it was a good game. Hopefully whatever you did, whether you were there for the commercials, the food, the game, or didn't watch it at all, I hope you had a good Super Bowl Sunday and also had a great weekend. Not much going on here. Was able to catch up with an old friend of mine, Michelle Strange, who I've had on the site before and had done like a Facebook Live with during the pandemic, or Instagram Live. She used to be on a podcast and then is now traveling the country, bouncing around, kind of living a nomad life as a traveling dental hygienist. So she came in with her boyfriend from Colorado, so I got to catch up with them for a little while this weekend. So that was really nice. Good to see her in person. She's been out of the Charleston area for about a year. So that was great. Otherwise, nothing too crazy going on. Just, working and getting this podcast out for you. And speaking of that, if you're just checking back into the podcast, we're now releasing 3 times a week. We shoot for Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So to make sure you don't miss anything, be sure to subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you prefer. All right, first we'll, of course, get into the Alex Murdaugh murder trial. Some updates from Friday's podcast. A lot of last week, as we talked about, was a lot about the financial crimes that Murdaugh either allegedly or has confirmed to have committed. So there's a lot of that as they're pushing that as the motive. But as we learned, there can still be fireworks and things, as there was a bomb threat called in one day last week. And yeah, you remember all the interesting things that happened last week in the trial. A couple things we haven't talked about, as I said, update from last time. On Friday, the defense team actually moved for a mistrial. The motion, which in the end was denied by Judge Clifton Newman, came as prosecutors examined Blanca Turrubiate-Simpson, who worked as a housekeeper for the Murdaughs. So, long story short, while she was being questioned, the prosecution had asked something about financial crimes, financial worries, and the defense said that before the judge had made a ruling on if this was admissible or not, because the defense said it was hearsay evidence. The jury had heard her response to a question. They thought that had prejudiced the jury if the judge had ruled that this wasn't admissible. So it was, definitely some drama as they had moved for that mistrial, which ultimately was denied. Another interesting twist is there just continues to be in this case, not just the trial, but everything involving this family and this whole thing. Just like I said with the bomb threat last week, there's just always something, always. And one of the weird twists from last week was regarding Mark Tinsley, who is the attorney who was representing the family of Mallory Beach, the 19-year-old woman who was killed in the boat crash, where Alex's son was supposedly entirely inebriated and was driving this boat, crashed it, and led to the death of Mallory Beach. So the attorney took the stand. But just before he went up there, the defense lawyers told the judge they had learned that Tinsley had donated to a GoFundMe page set up for Michelle Smith, the caregiver for Alex Murdaugh's mother. So after she had testified, someone in her family put up a GoFundMe, saying they're proud of her for having the courage to testify and do the right thing. And they were just trying to raise some money for her, I guess. And Mark Tinsley, about to take the stand, apparently donated to it, and the defense saw that. So the defense attorney, Philip Barber, in this instance, said he was concerned that Tinsley, who testified previously without the jury present, that's because these financial crimes, they didn't want the jury there before it was determined if it could be admissible, so there's no jury present, so that's what that's all about. But anyway, he had donated to a witness in a case that he has, quote, direct financial interest in, end quote. So the defense was trying to say, hey, he's giving money to this woman who's testifying. He's got a direct financial interest in her, and that doesn't seem to be on the up and up. So they obviously, brought this and said, hey, this doesn't look good. He shouldn't be able to testify. However, the judge denied that defense motion to exclude Tinsley's testimony, so his testimony still will go through. But again, just another weird twist. Even if there was nothing untoward going on, by donating to that, you got to be smarter than that. If you're a witness, if you're involved in this case, you just got to be careful. It's just everything is under a microscope, and the defense is certainly looking for things, as we've seen with the declaration for wanting a mistrial. So there was that as well. As if that wasn't enough, there was some drama with the Murdaugh family as well. So on Wednesday, Alex's sister, Lynn, supposedly passed him a book through a member of his defense team. It was not shared with the victim's advocate, which has to be done when, an inmate is being given something. And his sister had previously been scolded just 5 minutes before that. And all this information is coming from a source who talked to CNN about it. The book was considered contraband because it was not clear what was in it, adding that Murdaugh was already back in his jail cell with the book before anybody could even check it. So the book, if you're wondering, was John Grisham's The Judge's List. So there's that little tidbit if you were interested. It was later confiscated. So his sister gets in trouble. And in addition to that, the judge, Judge Newman, of course, was made aware of an obscene gesture that Alex Murdaugh's surviving son, Buster, made toward Mark Tinsley, who we were just talking about. He was the one who represents Mallory Beach. So the county clerk of court, Rebecca Hill, told CNN that the gesture happened on Monday during Tinsley's testimony outside of the presence of the jury. So that's what we were talking about before. So apparently when he was testifying, Buster made some kind of obscene gesture towards him. So he was scolded as well. They were both told and warned that any more violations will result in them being barred from the courtroom. So again, just random weird drama in this case. There's always something going on, more twists and turns, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more this week, and I'll keep you up to date. So it's been nearly 3 weeks since the International African American Museum was supposed to open in downtown Charleston. Officials had to delay the opening. You may remember us talking about this due to some conditions inside the building, specifically regarding humidity. The city of Charleston's deputy director for capital projects, Edmund Most, said that the HVAC system at the museum is more than halfway complete at this point, but during interior construction work, it's been difficult to stabilize the museum's condition. So they're still not quite there yet. No word on when they plan to open. They've just kind of said it's on hold. They got to get this stuff figured out, and apparently they're having issues with it now. Outside of, you want guests to be comfortable. You don't want it too hot or too cold. It's more than that too, because the museum has to fit certain standards needed for conservation, because of artifacts and documents and whatever else they have in the museum. They have to make sure that they stay in good condition, and that involves having a functioning HVAC unit, making sure that, you can keep temperatures, humidity, whatever it may be, at certain levels to protect those things. So still not quite there yet. Seems like it's going to be a longer delay than many anticipated, but we'll let you know of any updates. Speaking of updates, this is a story we talked about last year. You may remember that the South Carolina state flag, believe it or not, there are many, many versions of it flying around out there, and there's really no official state flag. So last year, a bill to codify a official state flag design, died on the Senate floor last session under the opposition of just one senator. The Senate's Family and Veterans Affairs Committee, though, unanimously sent the flag bill to the Senate floor once again back on February 8th. If the bill eventually gets to the governor's desk and he signs it, the official flag would feature a deep indigo background, which Post and Courier says is dubbed Pantone 282C. And of course, the white crescent will be in the upper left corner. The palmetto tree in the center will be based on a form that was official with the state from 1910 to 1940. So South Carolina has no official state flag design, as I mentioned, and it hasn't had one since a provision of state law was repealed back in 1940. What that meant was flags that fly over government buildings around the state can be different. They're based on whatever designs were chosen by the suppliers. So it seems like a silly thing, and I get there's far more important things out there. But instead of having multiple versions of a flag around, even if the differences are hard to even notice, they just want an official state flag to fly over government buildings or for whatever use. That way there's not different variations on it. So I'll let you know about any updates on that as well. But hopefully they will get this passed and not have like one person holding it up like last session. Another update for you, this one on the Chinese surveillance balloon or spy balloon. You may remember last week it was shot down off the coast of Myrtle Beach. Have a couple updates on that from last week. Navy divers began pulling up pieces of the downed balloon from the depths of the ocean floor back on Tuesday. They had to use some pretty sophisticated reconnaissance drones to do that. Part of the drone was floating on the ocean. Obviously, they were able to get that pretty quick, but the rest of the recovery is a little bit deeper. So they are working on that. In addition, what the U.S. government has said, they can now confirm that it had high-tech electronic surveillance technology that they say was capable of monitoring U.S. communications and other sensitive information from targets across the world. The government also said that China's military is likely behind like this huge aerial spy program that has targeted more than 40 countries on 5 different continents with high altitude surveillance balloons similar to the one that were just shot down last week. You may have also heard that another something was shot down in Alaska, likely another surveillance balloon. And then on Saturday, it was determined that Canada wanted to shoot down some kind of object as well, ostensibly another one of these balloons. And so they requested assistance from the US. They had their own military trying to get to the balloon or object, whatever it was. And the US got there first and shot that down. So it's just like constantly happening. And as I was about to record, there was reports that there was another US airport that was shutting down and they were restricting flights. And I'm guessing it's related to another surveillance balloon or object of some kind. So just wild that just a week ago they shot down the one, and it seems like more are getting shot down every day. So those are the updates we have on that. I also want to circle back to last weekend's Grammys. I mentioned Ranky Tanky had won their second Grammy Award, but one I didn't know about until the Post and Courier shared it is that another Charleston-based artist took home some accolades. So, a Charleston-based Christian and gospel music performer and worship leader won 4 Grammy Awards, and this was back on February 5th. So 4 in one night, which is pretty incredible. The man, whose name is Chandler Moore, partners with a collective of contemporary worshipers out of Atlanta called Maverick City Music. And yeah, as I mentioned, they had a pretty great time at the 65th ceremony out in Los Angeles, 4 Grammy Awards. So congrats to Chandler Moore on that. Bouncing over to politics, South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson has joined other Republican-led states in formally opposing mail delivery of medication used to end early pregnancies. He did this by signing onto a brief in a lawsuit against the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. So back in January, President Joe Biden announced that the FDA has changed its rules for the delivery of the abortion medication mifepristone, a drug used to end pregnancies up to 10 weeks after conception. The agency determined that the drug was safe to be prescribed via telehealth and delivered by mail. However, soon after Biden's announcement, a group of healthcare professionals that oppose abortion, their name is the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine, filed a lawsuit against the FDA over the change. And as I mentioned, now Attorney General Alan Wilson here in South Carolina has added himself and our state to that lawsuit. Their brief argues that the changes made by the FDA regarding the drug violate federal and state law. So we'll see how that's ruled. And lastly, although I don't have Super Bowl news for you, not that I think any of you would be tuning into the podcast for sports scores or anything like that, I do have a football story for you. Trevon Sanders has officially made the roster for the Orlando Guardians of the XFL. This was announced on Friday. So if you don't remember, Sanders is a Low Country native who had been working for the North Charleston Police Department when he was selected by Orlando back in January when they held their draft. So congratulations to him, first of all. North Charleston police officer is officially on the Orlando roster. What is the XFL? For those who don't remember, this is a league that this will be the third attempt to sustain more than a season. They tried it back in 2001. And this, by the way, the first two iterations involve Vince McMahon and WWE, and there's been different. The 2001 version was a lot different than the comeback they tried to make pre-pandemic. And now this third attempt is co-owned by actor and wrestler Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and is scheduled to begin next month. We'll see if it's more successful than their past attempts. And granted, the most recent one, the pandemic, is kind of what put the kibosh on it. But we'll see. Regardless, you'll have at least one player you can cheer for. Former North Charleston police officer. I shouldn't say former. I don't know what's going to happen with this whole football career thing if he's still employed there or whatnot. But we can cheer for local. NFL ended last night, and the XFL starts next month, so football continues, which is great for football fans. But if you don't like football, I apologize to you. So that's it. That's the updates from this past weekend. I hope you enjoy your Monday. I hope your week is off to a great start when you're listening to this. And if not, well, I hope your week gets better. I will talk to you all again on Wednesday. Before that, though, thank you so much for listening and supporting Holy City Center. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to support further, you can go to holycitycenter.com/shop and pick up some merchandise. You can also go to patreon.com/holycitycenter, where you can sign up to be a patron. That's a big help as well. And if you like this podcast, share it with someone else you think who might. Be sure to subscribe to it. That helps. Also, liking it, rating it, leaving reviews, whatever it is, all that stuff helps raise its profile. So I'd appreciate if you have just a spare moment to do those if you can. Also need to thank Lindsay Marie Collins of LMC Sound System for producing this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio, and Tyler Boone, whose music you hear at the beginning and end of each episode. So thank you to both of them and to all of you. And until Wednesday, good night and good luck.